My name is Kimberly Williams, and I just turned 32. The text message from my brother Justin that would shatter my world came on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon. ATM just paid again. At first, I stared at my phone in confusion. Then the sickening realization began to dawn. But let me start from the beginning. Growing up in suburban Connecticut, our family appeared solidly middle class from the outside. My father, Martin Williams, worked as an accountant at Henderson & Associates, a respected local firm. My mother, Teresa, taught third grade at Maple Elementary, her classroom walls covered with colorful student artwork and motivational posters. We lived in a modest 3-bedroom colonial with a small backyard where Dad would grill on weekends while Mom tended her prized rose garden. My younger brother Justin and I seemed to have a typical American childhood birthday parties with store-bought cakes, family trips to the Jersey Shore, and holiday traditions that felt warm and stable. But beneath this veneer of normalcy, cracks were already forming. I started noticing the tension around bill-paying time when I was 12, so the hushed arguments between my parents late at night, voices rising and falling like angry waves. Mom would scrutinize grocery store receipts obsessively, her teacher's pen marking calculations in the margins. She clipped coupons with military precision, organizing them in a small accordion file she carried everywhere. Dad would snap when Justin or I asked for new clothes or school supplies. "Money doesn't grow on trees," he'd say, his jaw tight with stress. "Do you think I'm made of cash?" There was an edge to his voice that made my stomach clench, a desperation that a 12-year-old couldn't fully understand but instinctively feared. In our family, there was an unspoken cultural expectation that children should support their parents. Dad often spoke about his own immigrant parents, how he'd sent money home every month until they died. "Family takes care of family," he'd say. "That's what real love looks like sacrifice." These words would echo in my mind for years to come. Everything changed dramatically when I turned 14. Dad lost his accounting job during company downsizing. One of 12 employees let go when Henderson & Associates lost their biggest client. I'll never forget the day he came home early, his face ashen, carrying a small cardboard box with his desk belongings. His identity was deeply tied to being the family provider, and the loss devastated him. For months, he spent days in his worn bathrobe, scanning job listings on the old computer and sending out resumes that rarely generated responses. His depression filled our home with a heaviness none of us knew how to lift. Some mornings, I'd find him still at the computer at 2 a.m., the blue screen light casting shadows under his eyes. Mom took on extra work wherever she could find it, substituting at different schools, tutoring students after hours, and picking up evening shifts at the local Macy's. I would often come home to find Justin alone, warming up microwave dinners because neither parent was home. Mom would stumble in around 9 p.m., exhausted, her teacher's smile long faded, her feet swollen from standing all day. That's when I stepped up. At 15, I got my working papers and landed a job at Scoops, the local ice cream shop. I worked weekends and after school, standing on sore feet for hours, coming home smelling like sugar and dairy, my uniform sticky with spilled ice cream. Every paycheck, every single dollar went straight to Mom, who would tear up gratefully as I handed it over. "You're such a good girl, Kimberly," she would say, tucking the money into her purse with trembling hands. "This helps more than you know. You're saving our family." And Justin, 4 years younger than me, was carefully shielded from most of our financial troubles. He remained relatively carefree, playing video games and hanging out with friends while I worked. When he asked why I was always at the ice cream shop, Mom would intervene before I could answer. "Your sister is just saving for college, Honeyta," she'd say, shooting me a meaningful look. "Don't worry about it. Kimberly doesn't mind helping out." That became the family narrative. Kimberly works because she wants to. Kimberly doesn't mind missing school events for extra shifts. Kimberly is fine eating ramen while we order pizza for Justin. No one acknowledged the increasing pressure placed on my teenage shoulders, or the way I'd started having stomach aches from the stress of balancing work and school. Looking back, I realized this was when the pattern began. My worth became tied to my utility, my love measured by my financial contributions. In high school, I doubled down on both work and academics, understanding instinctively that education was my ticket out of financial instability. Between shifts at Scoops and later as a waitress at Murphy's Diner, I maintained a perfect GPA, joined every academic club that might look good on college applications, and spent countless late nights studying by the dim light of my desk lamp while my family slept. The exhaustion was constant. I'd catch myself nodding off during first period chemistry, my head jerking up when the teacher called on me. My social life was practically non-existent while my classmates went to movies or parties. I was refilling coffee cups and calculating tips. Dating was out of the question. Who had time for relationships when your family's survival depended on your weekend shifts? My hard work paid off when I received a partial scholarship to Boston University. It wasn't enough to cover everything, so I continued working throughout college, juggling 30-hour work weeks with a full course load. While other students enjoyed the full college experience parties, clubs, spring break trips, I lived on coffee and determination, often studying in the campus library until it closed at 2 a.m. Dad eventually found work at a smaller accounting firm, but at a significantly lower salary. The financial strain never fully lifted from our family. During college breaks, when I came home, I noticed my parents had aged beyond their years. The constant stress had etched permanent worry lines into their faces, and Dad's hair had gone completely gray. "We're so proud of you," Dad would say, his eyes lighting up when I shared my academic achievements. "You're going to break the cycle. Kimberly, you're going to give us all a better life." Those words fueled me through 4 grueling years, even as I sometimes wondered when I'd stopped being their daughter and started being their retirement plan. I graduated summa cum laude with degrees in computer science and business management. When several tech companies started recruiting me, I felt like everything I had sacrificed was finally paying off. I landed a position at Horizon Tech, a rapidly growing software company in Boston, with a starting salary that was more money than my parents had ever made combined. The first thing I did after signing my contract was call home. "Mom, Dad, I did it," I said, tears streaming down my face as I stood in my tiny studio apartment. "I got the job. I can really help now." 3 years into my career at Horizon, I received a major promotion to executive product manager. My salary jumped significantly, and for the first time in my life, I had more money than I needed for basic survival. The decision to help my parents financially seemed not just obvious, but inevitable. "I want to send you guys some money each month," I told them during a weekend visit home. $5,000, just to make things easier. Their reaction was everything I had hoped for and more. Mom cried real tears this time, not the frustrated ones I'd seen so often during my childhood. Dad hugged me so tightly I could barely breathe, his voice thick with emotion. Even Justin seemed impressed, giving me a rare look of genuine admiration. "You don't have to do this, sweetheart," Mom said, though I noticed she didn't actually decline the offer. "I want to," I insisted, feeling a warm glow of satisfaction. "You sacrifice so much for us. Let me help now that I can." That conversation began a 5-year arrangement that would cost me far more than money. The first hint that something wasn't right came about 2 years into our arrangement. I visited home for Thanksgiving, driving the 3 hours from Boston to Connecticut in heavy holiday traffic. As I pulled into the driveway, I noticed a brand-new Lexus SUV parked where Mom's old Honda usually sat. "Whose car is that?" I asked, as I lugged my overnight bag up the front steps. "Oh, that's mine," Mom said casually, opening the door with a bright smile. We decided it was time for something more reliable. The Honda was costing us a fortune in repairs. Dad emerged from the living room, looking healthier and more relaxed than I'd seen him in years. He was wearing a new-looking golf polo and a designer watch I didn't recognize. "There's my successful daughter," he announced, embracing me warmly. "How's the corporate world treating you?" Throughout that weekend, I noticed other changes. The living room had been completely redecorated with high-end furniture that looked like it came from a showroom. The kitchen sported granite countertops and stainless steel appliances that gleamed under new track lighting. Mom was wearing jewelry I'd never seen before, delicate gold earrings and a tennis bracelet that caught the light when she moved. When I asked about these upgrades, they always had ready explanations. The furniture was on a 0% financing plan. The kitchen renovation was necessary because of water damage from a pipe leak. The jewelry was a special anniversary splurge they'd been saving for. Everything had a convenient justification that made it hard for me to question further without seeming petty or ungrateful. After all, weren't these the people who had raised me? Didn't they deserve nice things after years of struggle? Justin arrived late to Thanksgiving dinner, sauntering in without helping with any preparations. At 24, he still lived at home and, as I learned during dinner conversation, had recently quit his job at the local sporting goods store. "I'm taking time to find my true path," he explained when I asked about his employment status, his tone suggesting this was perfectly reasonable. "Mom and Dad understand this is just a transitional phase." Despite having no income, he was sporting a new iPhone and designer sneakers that probably cost more than I spent on shoes in a year. "How are you affording all your things without a job?" I asked him privately as we washed dishes after dinner. He shrugged with the casual confidence of someone who'd never worried about money. "Mom and Dad help me out while I'm figuring things out. They understand that rushing into the wrong career would be worse than taking time to find the right one." Something about this didn't sit right with me, but I pushed the feeling aside. My parents deserved nice things after years of struggle, didn't they? And if they wanted to help Justin find his path, that was their choice. I was successful enough to support everyone. Wasn't that what family was for? A few months later, I received a call from Mom 3 days before my monthly transfer was scheduled. "Kimberly, honey, I hate to ask, but is there any way you could send this month's money a little early? Dad and I have a payment due, and we're a bit short." "Sure, no problem," I replied immediately, already pulling up my banking app. "Is everything okay?" "Oh, yes, just a timing issue with bills," she assured me, her voice bright with relief. I sent the money that day, but these timing issues became increasingly frequent. Soon, Mom was calling regularly to ask when exactly the money would arrive, her voice carrying an edge of anxiety that made my stomach tighten. If I ever mentioned having a large expense coming up myself, like when I needed to replace my laptop for work or had unexpected medical bills, both parents became noticeably anxious. "You're still sending the usual amount this month, right?" Dad would ask, a hint of worry creeping into his voice. "Of course," I would assure them, feeling a twinge of resentment that they never asked about my financial well-being or seemed to consider that I might have needs of my own. During one visit, I arrived early and overheard an argument between my parents in the kitchen. "She'll be here any minute," Mom was saying in a hushed but urgent tone. "Put those brochures away." I cleared my throat as I entered, and they both jumped, looking guilty. A colorful travel pamphlet was hastily shoved into a drawer. "What brochures?" I asked casually. "Oh, just some junk mail." Dad dismissed with a wave of his hand. "How was your drive?" Later, when they thought I was napping, I overheard another fragment of conversation. "We can't tell her about the Bahamas trip yet," Mom whispered. "Not until after we've secured the additional funds for the house repairs." House repairs. The house looked immaculate to me, and they were planning a Bahamas vacation on a teacher's pension and reduced accounting salary. The math wasn't adding up, but every time I tried to ask more detailed questions about their finances, they would change the subject or make me feel intrusive for asking. My best friend Alicia had started noticing the change in my demeanor whenever I discussed my family. Over dinner at her apartment one night, she finally confronted me. "Kim, I need to ask you something," she said, refilling my wine glass with a concerned expression. "How much money are you sending your parents every month?" I hesitated before answering. $5,000. Alicia nearly choked on her wine. $5,000 every month for how long? About 2 years now, I admitted, feeling suddenly defensive. That's over $120,000, she calculated quickly. And they're still asking for more. Something doesn't add up here. They sacrificed a lot for me growing up, I defended, though my voice lacked conviction. Did they? Alicia challenged gently. Or did you sacrifice for them? You were working at 15 while your brother never had to lift a finger. Now you're still supporting everyone. When does it end? Her words stung because part of me knew she was right. But acknowledging that would mean confronting some painful truths about my family dynamics that I wasn't ready to face. It happened on an ordinary Tuesday. I was working from home, finalizing a presentation for an important client meeting, when my phone buzzed with a text from Justin. ATM just paid again. We should hit Mickey's for drinks tonight before Mom and Dad blow it all on their secret project. I stared at the message, confusion giving way to a sickening realization. This wasn't meant for me. Justin had obviously sent it to the wrong person. My fingers hovered over the keyboard as I tried to formulate a response. Before I could, 3 dots appeared, followed quickly by another message. "Oh God, Kim, I'm so sorry. That wasn't for you." Then immediately after, "It was just a joke between friends." My hands were shaking as I typed back. The 3 dots appeared and disappeared several times. Justin was clearly panicking, trying to figure out how to explain this away. Finally, a message came through. "Can I call you?" "No," I replied firmly. "I want you to tell me exactly what that meant, in writing." The minutes ticked by. 5, 10. Finally, my phone rang instead. It was Justin. I declined the call and texted again. Either explain by text, or I'm calling Mom and Dad right now to ask them what the secret project is and why I'm being referred to as an ATM. That got a response. "It's not what you think. We have a family group chat. Sometimes we talk about the money you send. It's just stupid jokes." My throat tightened. "Show me the chat." Kim, come on. Show me the chat right now. Justin, all of it. Or I swear I will never send another penny and will block all of you." 20 excruciating minutes later, my email pinged with screenshots, dozens of them. With trembling fingers, I opened the first image and began to read. The group chat was titled Family Finances. The participants were Mom, Dad, and Justin. As I scrolled through message after message, my vision blurred with tears of rage and humiliation. Dad, 3 years ago. Deposit came through. Kimberly's contribution received. Mom, 3 years ago. Thank goodness. I was worried after that comment she made about her rent increase. Justin, 3 years ago. Is she still sending the full $5,000, Dad? 3 years ago. Of course. Your sister may be smart with computers, but not so much with family boundaries. LOL. The messages continued, becoming increasingly callous as time went on. Mom, 2 years ago. The ATM has paid out. Vacation fund is growing nicely. Dad, 2 years ago. Don't call her that on here. Teresa, she might see it somehow. Mom, 2 years ago. She never touches my phone. Besides, she's too busy working to visit anyway. They discussed strategies for ensuring I kept sending money. They celebrated purchases made with Kimberly's dollars. They complained when I briefly mentioned financial stress during company restructuring. Justin, 1 year ago. Should we be worried Kim said something about budget cuts at her company? Dad, 1 year ago. I already handled it. Told her about that fictional medical test I needed. She'll keep paying. Mom, 1 year ago. Martin, you're terrible. But it worked, didn't it? The fictional medical test. I remembered that conversation clearly. Dad had called sounding worried. saying he needed some specialized cardiac screening not covered by insurance. I had been genuinely concerned and immediately offered to help cover the costs. There had been no test. It was all manipulation. The most recent messages were the most devastating. Dad, 1 month ago, lake house closing next week. Don't forget we're telling Kimberly it's for roof repairs on this house. Mom, 1 month ago. She never checks anyway. Too trusting for her own good. Justin, 1 month ago. When do I get my new car? You promised once the lake house was secured. Mom, 1 month ago. Your sister's bonus season is coming up. We'll ask for extra then. Dad, 1 month ago. Maybe we should start mentioning grandchildren. That might open up the vault even more. LOL. They had bought a lake house with my money. After telling me they needed help with essential home repairs, they were planning to manipulate me for more by dangling the prospect of grandchildren, and they found it amusing. I sat in stunned silence, phone clutched in my hand as tears streamed down my face. 5 years, 60 months, $300,000. All while they laughed behind my back, called me an ATM, and deliberately excluded me from family experiences my money had funded. Through blurry eyes, I scrolled back further, looking for any indication that they appreciated me beyond my financial contributions, any expression of love or concern for my well-being. There was nothing. Summoning my technical skills, I accessed the shared family cloud storage account I had set up and paid for years ago. They had apparently forgotten I had administrator privileges. Within minutes, I was scrolling through family photos I'd never seen before. My parents and Justin at a beautiful lake house I knew nothing about. Holiday celebrations I hadn't been invited to. A family cruise from the previous summer. Justin's extravagant 26th birthday party with dozens of guests in what appeared to be a rented venue. The most painful discovery was a folder labeled Lake House Closing. It contained photos of my parents and brother, champagne glasses raised, standing in front of a beautiful waterfront property. The date stamp was just 2 weeks ago. The caption on one photo read, "Freedom at 59, early retirement. Here we come." Early retirement funded entirely by me while I worked 60-hour weeks in Boston. I continued digging and found a spreadsheet titled Kimberly Fund Allocation. It detailed exactly how they had spent my money over the years, the mortgage payoff on their primary home, Justin's living allowance, the down payment on the lake house, vacations, golf club membership, luxury purchases. Less than 10% had gone to actual bills and necessities. At the bottom of the spreadsheet was a section labeled Future Asks, with notes on how to approach me for additional funds beyond the monthly transfer. Ideas included medical emergencies, home repair emergencies, and eventually grandchild educational fund with a note that read, "She'll definitely go for that one." It was all so calculated, so deliberate. The betrayal wasn't just financial, it was a complete mockery of my trust and love for them. I finally texted Justin back with just 4 words, "I've seen enough. Thanks." Then I turned off my phone, called in sick to work for the first time in my career, and fell apart completely. The next 72 hours passed in a blur of tears and disbelief. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't concentrate on anything except the screenshots and images burned into my brain. I alternated between sobbing uncontrollably and sitting in numb silence, staring at the wall of my apartment. My phone accumulated dozens of missed calls and messages from my family. I couldn't bear to read or listen to any of them. What possible explanation could justify years of such calculated deception? On the 3rd day, my doorbell rang persistently. I ignored it until a familiar voice called through the mail slot. "Kimberly Williams, I know you're in there. Open this door right now, or I'm calling the super to do a welfare check." It was Alicia. Somehow she always knew when I needed her most. I dragged myself to the door, painfully aware of my unwashed hair and tear-stained face. The moment she saw me, her expression shifted from annoyance to deep concern. "Oh my God. Kim, What happened? I couldn't even speak. I just handed her my phone with the screenshot still open. She sat on my couch, scrolling silently, her expression darkening with each swipe. "These absolute monsters," she finally whispered. That broke the dam again. I collapsed beside her, sobbing into her shoulder as she held me tightly. "They called me an ATM." I choked out between sobs. "They've been laughing at me for years, using me. I'm such a fool." "No," Alicia said firmly. "You're not a fool. You're a loving, generous daughter who was taken advantage of by people who should have protected you. This is not your fault." But it felt like my fault. I should have seen the signs, should have questioned more, should have demanded accountability for how my money was being spent. $300,000, I whispered. "That's how much I've given them over 5 years, and they were planning to take more." Alicia's eyes widened. "That's not just taking advantage. That's financial abuse." The term hit me like a physical blow. Financial abuse. I had never considered that what was happening could be categorized as abuse. But the systematic deception, manipulation, and exploitation certainly qualified. The next morning, I called Dr. Rebecca Fisher, a therapist recommended by Alicia who specialized in family trauma. Within days, I was having regular sessions, working through the complex emotions of betrayal, grief, and rage. "What you're experiencing is a profound grief," Dr. Fisher explained during our 3rd session. "You're not just losing money. You're losing the family you thought you had, the relationship you believed existed." She helped me understand that my tendency to caretake had roots in my childhood. When I'd taken on adult responsibilities at a young age, I had been conditioned to put my family's needs above my own, to find my worth in what I could provide rather than who I was. "You learned early that love and worth were tied to utility," she explained. "That's a lesson you'll need to unlearn." After 2 weeks of intensive therapy, I felt ready to confront my family. Dr. Fisher helped me script key points I wanted to communicate and practice responses to likely manipulation tactics they might employ. "Remember," she cautioned during our final prep session, "they've had years to perfect their methods of controlling and manipulating you. Don't expect them to suddenly become self-aware or genuinely remorseful when confronted." I decided to meet them at their house, but with safeguards in place. Alicia would drive me and wait outside. I would record the conversation for my own protection. I set a firm 2-hour time limit and prepared an exit strategy. Saturday arrived crisp and clear. Alicia squeezed my hand as she parked across the street from my parents' house. "I'll be right here the whole time," she promised. "Text me deadline if you need me to come in or call with a fake emergency." I walked up the familiar path to the front door, my heart pounding, but my resolve steady. Before I could knock, it swung open to reveal my mother, eyes puffy from crying or lack of sleep, a forced smile firmly in place. "Kimberly, sweetheart," she began, reaching for an embrace. I stepped back, maintaining physical distance. "Let's go inside." Dad and Justin were waiting in the living room. Dad stood when I entered, his expression a calculated mix of concern and authority. Justin remained seated, shoulders hunched, unable to meet my eyes. "Kimberly," Dad started, "we're so glad you're finally ready to talk. This whole situation has been—" "I'm not here for your version of events," I interrupted calmly. "I've seen the group chat. I've seen the photos. I've seen the spreadsheet tracking how you've spent my money. I know about the lake house, the vacations, Justin's allowance, everything." The room fell silent. Mom's fake smile faltered. Dad's authoritative posture stiffened. Justin stared at the floor. "I've been sending you $5,000 every month for 5 years, I continued, my voice steady despite the anger burning inside me. "That's $300,000 total. Money I worked 60-hour weeks to earn. Money I sacrificed my own life goals for. Now, Kimberly," Dad attempted to regain control, "you're making it sound like we forced you to send that money. You offered—" I offered because I thought you needed it for essentials, I replied, not for luxury cars and vacation properties. We've worked hard all our lives, Mom interjected, tears welling in her eyes right on cue. Is it so wrong for us to finally enjoy some comfort in our later years? The comfort isn't the issue, I said. The deliberate deception is you lied about medical tests that never happened. You claimed to need roof repairs while buying a lake house. You excluded me from family vacations my own money paid for. Those were just white lies. Dad dismissed with a wave. Every family has their little secrets. I pulled out my phone and showed them a screenshot from a year earlier, Dad writing, "The ATM came through again. Boat fund is looking good." "Just jokes, right?" I said flatly. No one laughed. "We never meant to hurt you." Mom tried, reaching for my hand. I pulled away. "You planned it all systematically, Mom," I countered. "For years. The spreadsheet has a section called Future Asks with detailed notes on how to manipulate me for more money." Dad shifted strategies, his expression hardening. "After everything we did for you growing up, putting a roof over your head, food on the table, clothes on your back, this is how you repay us by attacking us over a few private jokes. I started working at 15 to help support this family," I reminded him. "I handed over every paycheck. I worked through high school and college, while you protected Justin from any responsibility. I've been repaying you my entire life for doing the bare minimum parents are supposed to do." "We gave you life," Mom cried, going for the ultimate guilt trip. "You owe us everything you have." "I owe you nothing," I said quietly, the realization crystallizing as I spoke the words. "Children aren't investments with expected returns. They're not retirement plans or ATMs." Justin finally looked up, his expression genuinely remorseful. "Kim, I'm really sorry. I should have said something sooner. It wasn't right what we were doing." "Shut up, Justin," Dad snapped. "Don't let her turn you against us." I turned to my brother. "Did you know they were buying the lake house with my money?" He nodded miserably. "They said it would benefit all of us eventually, that you made so much money you'd never miss it. And the allowance they've been giving you from my contributions." Another nod. $2,000 a month. I couldn't help the bitter laugh that escaped me. "So nearly half of what I sent each month went straight to you while I worked overtime and skipped vacations to help the family." After nearly 2 hours of circular arguments, denials, minimizations, justifications, attacks, tears, and pleas, it became painfully clear that they weren't sorry for what they'd done. They were only sorry they'd been caught. "I think we're done here," I said finally, standing up. "What does that mean?" Mom asked, panic edging into her voice. "Are you still sending the monthly money?" That was her primary concern, not our relationship, not my emotional well-being. The money. "No," I said simply. "That arrangement is over permanently." "You can't just cut us off," Dad exploded, his facade finally cracking. "We're your parents. You have obligations." "My only obligation is to myself now," I replied. "I'll be sending a formal letter outlining my decision and expectations going forward. I suggest you adjust your financial plans accordingly." As I turned to leave, Justin followed me to the door. "Kim, wait," he said quietly, out of earshot of our parents. "I really am sorry. I got caught up in it all, but I never felt right about it." I studied my brother's face, searching for sincerity. There was genuine regret there, but also the self-centered perspective of someone who had never faced real consequences. Actions speak louder than words. "Justin," I said finally, "if you're truly sorry, make changes. Get a job. Stop taking their money, my money. Be better than this." He nodded solemnly. "I will. I promise." I didn't fully believe him. but I recognized the possibility for growth that seemed entirely absent in our parents. As I walked back to Alicia's car, I felt oddly light. The confrontation had gone almost exactly as Dr. Fisher had predicted. There had been no miraculous moment of clarity from my parents, no tearful, genuine apology, no commitment to change, but I hadn't expected those things. What I had needed was to speak my truth, to stand my ground, to reclaim my power. In that, I had succeeded completely. The day after the confrontation, I took decisive action. First, I permanently canceled the automatic monthly transfer. The simple act of clicking Cancel Recurring Payment felt monumentally empowering. Next, I consulted with attorney Sarah Jenkins to understand my legal options. The audit she recommended revealed that my parents had somehow gained access to one of my credit card accounts, charging nearly $20,000 over the past year for various purchases. "This is fraud," Sarah stated bluntly. "You have legal recourse here." I wasn't ready to pursue criminal charges against my family, but Sarah helped me draft a formal cease and desist letter outlining exactly what I knew about their deception, the immediate cessation of financial support, and clear boundaries for any future contact. As expected, the response was immediate and explosive. My phone blew up with calls and texts ranging from tearful pleas to vicious accusations. I didn't respond to any of them. Following Dr. Fisher's guidance about maintaining no contact during this critical boundary-establishing phase, my parents tried every avenue to reach me. They contacted colleagues whose numbers they had from previous family gatherings. They showed up at my apartment building, only to be turned away by security after I placed them on a restricted visitor list. They even created new email addresses when I blocked their primary ones. The most difficult test came when my father's sister, Aunt Linda, called me. I had always been close with her and answered without thinking. "Kimberly, honey," she began gently, "I'm worried about you. Your parents say you've cut them off completely without explanation. That's not like you." "Did they tell you why?" I asked, already knowing the answer. "They said you've become obsessed with money since your promotion and have forgotten family values, that you're punishing them for some perceived slight." And I laughed without humor. "Ask them about the lake house they bought with my money while telling me they needed help with medical bills. Ask them about the group chat where they called me their ATM." Silence followed. Then, "There must be some misunderstanding." "There's no misunderstanding. Aunt Linda, I have screenshots, photos, spreadsheets. They systematically deceived me for years to fund their early retirement and Justin's lifestyle. That conversation, while painful, helped me practice articulating what had happened without shame or doubt. Each time I told my story, it became easier to own my experience without feeling humiliated by it. Professionally, I threw myself back into work with renewed focus. The clarity that came from removing the constant financial drain allowed me to channel my energy into projects I was passionate about. 6 months after cutting financial ties with my family, I received another promotion and substantial raise. "You've been exceptionally focused and innovative these past months," my boss commented during my performance review. "Whatever personal issues you were dealing with earlier this year, you've clearly overcome them." I smiled, knowing she couldn't possibly understand the magnitude of the transformation I'd undergone. As weeks passed, the desperate communications from my parents gradually decreased in frequency. The most manipulative attempt was an email from Mom claiming Dad was in the hospital with heart problems. Dr. Fisher had warned me to expect health emergency claims as a common manipulation strategy. I called the hospital Mom had named. No patient by my father's name was registered there. Another deception. Another confirmation that maintaining my boundaries was the right decision. Justin was the only family member who seemed to be making genuine changes. He texted occasionally, not asking for anything, but simply checking in or sharing small updates about his life. He had found a job at a local marketing firm and moved into a shared apartment with friends. "I'm paying my own way for the first time," he wrote, It's harder than I expected, but also feels good. I think I understand a little of what you've been doing all these years." It was a small step, but significant, coming from someone who had never had to take responsibility before. After 6 months of no contact, I decided to allow a tentative reconnection with my parents, but strictly on my terms. Monthly phone calls, no discussion of money, and immediate termination of the call if they employed guilt or manipulation tactics. "How are those monthly calls going?" Dr. Fisher inquired during one of our sessions. "Better than expected," I admitted. "They're still themselves, but the power dynamic has completely shifted. They know I'll hang up the moment they cross a line, and I've done it several times. Now they're much more careful." "And how does that make you feel? Having that control, it's not about control," I realized as I spoke. "It's about respect. For the first time, I'm requiring them to treat me with basic respect if they want a relationship with me. The sad thing is, I don't think they really want a relationship that doesn't include financial benefit. Our calls are superficial, but I've accepted that's all they're capable of." The holiday season presented a new challenge. For the first time in my life, I wouldn't be spending Thanksgiving or Christmas with my family. The realization hit me harder than expected, triggering a wave of grief for the family I had thought I had. It's normal to mourn the loss of family traditions, even when the relationships were unhealthy. Dr. Fisher reassured me, "Consider creating new traditions that reflect your values and priorities." Taking her advice, I decided to host a chosen family Thanksgiving at my apartment. I invited Alicia, her boyfriend, 2 colleagues who couldn't travel home, and my new friend Michael, whom I'd met through a work conference. As we sat around my dining table, sharing stories and laughter, I felt a different kind of belonging than I'd ever experienced with my biological family. These people chose to be here with me, not because of obligation or what I could provide, but simply because they enjoyed my company. Michael stayed after the others had left, helping me clean up. Our friendship had been slowly evolving into something more, though I'd been hesitant to pursue it given my emotional state. "This was really special," he said as we washed dishes side by side. "Thank you for including me." "Thank you for coming," I replied. "It meant a lot to have you here." "I've noticed something," he said thoughtfully. "When I first met you at that conference, you seemed guarded, always checking your phone, worried about something. You're different now, more present." I hadn't realized the change was so visible to others. I was carrying a heavy burden then, financial and emotional. I've put it down now. "It looks good on you," he said simply. Freedom. Freedom. That was exactly it. For the first time since I was 15 years old, I wasn't responsible for anyone's financial well-being but my own. The money I earned through my hard work was mine to allocate according to my own values and priorities. With my newfound financial freedom, I established the Williams Future Fund, a small foundation providing scholarships and mentoring to working students from financially unstable backgrounds. The irony wasn't lost on me that I was still sending money to help others. But this time, it was a conscious choice aligned with my values, not manipulation based on exploitation. The foundation has been incredibly fulfilling. I shared with Dr. Fisher. Last week, I met our first 5 scholarship recipients. Seeing their determination and gratitude, it was healing in a way I hadn't anticipated. "You've transformed your pain into purpose," she observed. "That's one of the most powerful forms of healing." One of the scholarship recipients, Maria, reminded me so much of myself at 18, working multiple jobs while maintaining perfect grades, supporting her family while pursuing her own dreams. When I told her my story during our mentoring session, her eyes filled with tears. "I thought I was the only one," she whispered. "My friends don't understand why I can't just focus on school like they do." "You're not alone," I assured her. "And your worth isn't determined by what you can provide for others. You deserve support too. Watching Maria grow and thrive over the following months, knowing I was breaking a cycle rather than perpetuating one, filled me with a sense of purpose I'd never experienced before. 1 year after discovering the devastating truth about my family's deception, I sat in Dr. Fisher's office for what we had agreed would be our final regular session. "How would you describe your emotional state now compared to when we first met?" she asked. I considered the question carefully. A year ago, I felt completely shattered, like my entire understanding of my family and my place in it had been a lie. Now I feel whole, not the same as before, but stronger in the broken places. She nodded approvingly. "That's a beautiful description of post-traumatic growth. You've not just recovered from the betrayal, you've used it as a catalyst for profound positive change." The changes were indeed profound. My relationship with Justin had evolved into something genuinely healthy. He had maintained steady employment for nearly a year and had even started paying back some of what he had taken from me, a gesture I appreciated more for its symbolism than the actual amount. "Justin came to visit last month," I told Dr. Fisher. "We had dinner at my place. He brought wine and actually apologized again without prompting. Said he's been doing his own therapy work." "That's significant progress," she noted. My relationship with Michael had also flourished. Built on mutual respect, honesty, and healthy boundaries, it was a completely new experience for me. He knew my full story and had never once made me feel ashamed or foolish for what had happened. "Michael and I are talking about moving in together," I said, unable to suppress a smile. "It's both exciting and terrifying." "What's the terrifying part, Doctor?" Fisher probed. "Trusting someone that completely again, opening myself up to potential hurt. But you're doing it anyway. That's courage. Kimberly, not the absence of fear, but action despite it." As our final session drew to a close, Dr. Fisher asked me what wisdom I would share with someone else experiencing family financial exploitation. I thought carefully before answering. I would tell them that family relationships shouldn't come with price tags, that love shouldn't be transactional, that they deserve to prioritize their own well-being without guilt, and most importantly, that they're not alone. This happens to so many people, but we don't talk about it because of shame. "Would you have been ready to hear that a year ago?" she asked. "Probably not," I admitted. I needed to come to those realizations in my own time, through my own journey. Walking out of her office for the last time as a regular client, I felt a sense of graduation, a milestone achieved in the ongoing work of healing and growth. That evening, I sat on my balcony watching the sunset over Boston, reflecting on the painful but necessary wisdom I had gained. The betrayal had cost me the illusion of family as I had understood it, but it had given me something far more valuable: authentic connection with others and myself. Freedom from exploitative obligation, and the profound knowledge that I was enough, just as I was, without having to buy love or approval. My phone buzzed with a text from Michael. "Dinner's still on for 7. I have news about the apartment we looked at." I smiled as I replied affirmatively. Life moved forward, not in the direction I had once imagined, but towards something potentially richer and more genuine than I had known was possible. The family that had treated me as an ATM had inadvertently taught me my true value, and that lesson, painful as it was, had proven priceless. 6 months later, Michael and I moved into a beautiful apartment together. Justin visited us for housewarming, bringing a bottle of wine he had saved from his first paycheck at his new promotion. He looked healthy and confident in a way I'd never seen before. "I'm proud of you," I told him as we stood on our new balcony, "for making real changes." "I'm proud of you too," he replied, "for teaching me what self-respect looks like." My parents and I still have our monthly calls, though they remain surface level. Sometimes I catch glimpses of the people they might have been if fear and entitlement hadn't consumed them. But I've made peace with the relationship we have rather than mourning the one I thought we had. The Williams Future Fund has grown beyond my wildest expectations, now supporting 15 students annually. Maria graduated summa cum laude and is now pursuing her master's degree in social work, planning to help other young people navigate family financial abuse. "You saved my life," she told me at her graduation party. "Not just financially, but by showing me that I mattered as a person, not just as a provider." "You saved your own life," I corrected her. "I just reminded you that you were worth saving." As I write this, I'm preparing for my wedding to Michael next spring. Justin will be walking me down the aisle, a role that would traditionally belong to my father, but one that feels right given our journey together. My parents will be invited, with clear boundaries about their behavior. I've learned that family isn't always about blood. It's about the people who choose to love and support you without conditions, who celebrate your successes without calculating their benefit, who see your worth as inherent rather than transactional. The money I lost to my family's deception was significant, but not irreplaceable. The self-respect, authentic relationships, and freedom I gained in return, those are truly priceless. To anyone reading this who recognizes themselves in my story, you are not alone. You are not responsible for other people's financial security at the expense of your own well-being. And you deserve relationships based on genuine love rather than economic utility. Setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's necessary. And sometimes, the greatest act of love is refusing to enable someone else's dysfunction, even when that someone is family. Your worth isn't measured by your bank account or your willingness to sacrifice. You are valuable simply because you exist, and you deserve to live a life that reflects that truth.